So let's talk about Unleashing the Bond. How did the book come about, and who exactly is the book really kind of for? Who's your target audience?
How the book came about is in the fall of 2023, I got an email from the founder of a publishing company called Manuscripts Press. And I really frustrated my editors because they say, "Who is your target audience?" And
Yeah.
I said, "Everyone." I would say the biggest lesson I learned through the interviews that the human animal bond is both universal and deeply personal.
Talk a little bit about the what that bond kind of looks like.
So I'd say with pets, primarily dogs and cats that are companions, that bond often I think centers on companionship, a source of comfort and unconditional love. Many times the pet is the most stable part of a family structure.
Hmm.
Surprisingly, I learned that more kids grow up in households with pets than their biological father.
Welcome to the On Air podcast. This podcast is a program of the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges Diversity Matters Initiative. The podcast explores various issues related to diversity and inclusion in the veterinary profession and provides the AAVMC an opportunity to offer ongoing diversity programming to our member institutions as well as all veterinary professionals. My name is Dr. Lisa Greenhill, and I am the Chief Organizational Health Officer here at the AAVMC. On today's episode of the show, we are exploring the human animal bond. Now, as we know, the human animal bond is a air quotes mutually beneficial and dynamic relationship between humans and animals. That's all the fancy talk, and we know it goes way deeper than that definition that we have all become accustomed to in veterinary medicine. My guest today is Dr. Rustin Moore, and he has recently published a book called Unleashing the Bond. Full disclosure, my Wiley Terrier mix, Barkley, and I are featured in the book. And we can get into that a little bit later. The book explores a lot of different kinds of human animal bonds, their importance, and ways in which we should seek to protect and promote those relationships. So, hi, Rustin, how are you?
I'm doing great, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure, sure. And so, as is our custom on the show, I can't imagine that folks don't know who you are, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Rustin Moore, and I'm currently the dean at the Ohio State University College of Veterinary Medicine in my 11th year. I also am the immediate past president of the AAVMC, and certainly interested in the human-animal bond as well as other topics like One Health, and then also how diversity, equity, inclusion can be brought into the veterinary profession to enhance it in many ways. So that's me. I grew up in West Virginia on a small Appalachian hobby farm. And here I am today as a first generation college student, and also very interested in helping be a role model and mentor to people like that that are in their ages of youth who need someone to help them find their way into veterinary medicine.
Awesome, awesome. So, thank you so much for that personal intro. So, tell us a little bit about your personal journey that on that hobby farm and with animals, and how has being a veterinarian shaped your perspective, not only on kind of the human animal bond, but diversity and inclusion as well.
Sure. So, growing up on that farm, I say it was a hobby farm because my parents didn't have animals. I did. And I had about every kind of animal you can imagine: dogs, cats, ducks, chickens, geese, cows, pig, etc. And I'll come back to this in a minute, but I do think observing and watching those different animal species interact and peacefully coexist in sort of in a harmonious way. Back then, I don't think I realized. I mean, I know I didn't realize that, but reflecting on it, I can see that. And certainly as a veterinarian, I've been confronted with many patients, many situations where either people might not have money, or there was some patient or some client thing that might make me question whether we should do something. And you just have to I had to remind myself, don't judge, don't judge, don't judge. And so I really do think that we can learn a lot from the animal kingdom and certainly Mother Nature. Certainly, as it pertains to biodiversity, and in this case, I'm talking about animals specifically, but
Yeah.
to be broader than that, I believe it's essential to ecosystem health and vitality, and it's not just my opinion. There's a lot of research that shows that. And if we take those lessons learned and also the principles around that, and we can use that to promote organizational health and vibrancy, because the diversity of our profession in this case, or diversity of a veterinary practice or a business or organization depends on and fundamentally needs a diversity of ideas, perspectives, experiences, and other attributes to make it thrive.
Great. Awesome. So let's talk about Unleashing the Bond. How did the book come about, and who exactly is the book really kind of for? Who's your target audience?
So how the book came about is in the fall of 2023, I got an email from the founder of a publishing company called Manuscripts Press, saying that I saw your TED Talk titled The Power of a Pet from 2016, and I think you should turn this into a book. I replied, thank you very much for those kind words. I don't have time and I'm not the right person. Then he came back again. I said the same thing. Then he asked to get on a call like this, and we did. And somehow he's pretty compelling. When I got off there, not only did I commit to writing the book, I committed to paying them to help me with the editing, et cetera. So I never set out a goal to write a book like this, but I will, and if I would have known how much work it was going to be, I would have said no, absolutely no. But I am glad I didn't know, because I've thoroughly enjoyed the experience. So much so that I have book 2 coming out yet later this year.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, who's the audience? The audience, and I really frustrated my editors because they say, who is your target audience?
Yeah.
And I said, everyone. No, who is your target audience? Everyone. Because most everyone has had a pet or has one or could benefit from one. So it's not just for veterinarians or aspiring veterinarians or even current pet owners. It could be human healthcare workers, because they need to understand the bond when they're taking care of human patients. So it literally is written for everyone. I would say everyone from young teen to as senior adult as possible. And I hopefully it's written in a way that yes, there's science and all that, but it's written in a way that I think is pretty understandable by people, and it's a blend of science, history, data, and stories. And the stories, we'll get to this later, but they tie it all together and really, I think, bring it to life for people to sort of understand. And that was one of the most inspiring and emotionally fulfilling parts, is listening to those stories.
Wow, that's great. So the book centers the relationship that we as humans have with animals and how special that bond is. So, what did you learn new about that relationship? And what about this unique relationship that we have with animals is also applicable to the way that we engage one another?
So I think what I'm hearing in that question is really around, this is really around what's the biggest lesson that I learned, or
Yeah.
lessons that maybe I didn't already know or that were reinforced.
Yeah.
That's all. So I would say the biggest lesson I learned through the interviews, and it was actually reinforced. I sort of knew it, but it was reinforced, that the human animal bond is both universal and deeply personal, meaning no two bonds are the same, but yet the concept of the human animal bond is a universal phenomenon. And as we talked about, I interviewed over 100 people for the book and heard stories from people such as people who might be homeless or were homeless and had their pet, and how they would share their food or feed their animal before they would eat, whether it's from a veteran who relied on a dog to get them through the invisible wound of war with PTSD and actually get them through veterinary school right here at Ohio State, or a child with autism that was really learning how to train a that he didn't get, but he thought the dog needed it. So those are really powerful, but certainly each story was unique And I would say the only thing that wasn't unique is I can say pretty much every chapter or every interview I took place or did, at some point during that, I got chill bumps just listening to the stories and how moving they were. And they were heartfelt ones. And, there were ones that people recalled and they teared up. And there were ones where they were smiling or showing good memories of things. So I think it was just that it really also reinforced the positive benefits of animals on people. This idea of Zoea, which is really the positive health benefits physically, socially, behaviorally, mentally, emotionally, or psychologically, and also that it actually can help in child development and many other things. When I started outlining this book, I thought pretty simply, and then the deeper I dug in literature, but also in interviews, people would say something, and I would think, I need to go look into that. And so that's how book 2 has come about, because there was too much to put in book 1. But I would say the thing that struck me the most is the bond does transcend circumstances, cultures, backgrounds, socioeconomic status. They meet us where we are, and that's what we need to do when we're trying to engage with them, but also engage with people. And really, what they want and need from us was really just what we sort of need from others, is that concept of love, purpose, connection, belonging, and in this case, healing.
Yeah. I think back on our chat and our interview about me and my dog Barkley. Barkley is an 11-year-old, almost 11. He'll be 11 in a few weeks, about 6 weeks. And we use those communication buttons, and it has really turned the relationship that I had with my dog really upside down. Now that he's able to communicate, a lot of different desires. He is very clear that he wants his after dinner treat immediately after dinner.
And then he wants his after treat.
Yes, treat. But also just, the ways in which he reacts to me are different now that he has these additional tools at his disposal. And so it's just been really, I thought that we were very bonded before, but it really enhanced and deepened our bond. So, I think that a lot of folks certainly know that having an animal around is good for your health, right? Can we talk a little bit about what some of those psychological and physiological benefits, are that maybe you might talk about in the book? I know for me, Barkley at least gets me out to walk at least 1.5 miles every day, sometimes more, sometimes less.
Yeah. So, I think, it is centered in science.
Yeah.
So it's not just a feel-good phenomenon. And that science has shown through research that when we interact with an animal, whether we're petting it, whether we're gazing into its eyes, whether it's cuddling on our lap, there's a series of biochemical reactions going on in our bodies as well as their bodies. So in our bodies, we're releasing a number of neurotransmitters: oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. And those are all happy, feel good, love type hormones. And that's what gives us that high or that experience. And in some cases, maybe if you're running with your dog or whatever, also releasing endorphins. We also know that it decreases stress hormone, cortisol. So that could help explain a lot of things in terms of our emotional well-being, our psychological well-being, et cetera. But also we know that those who have an animal tend to have more exercise than those who don't. And that helps with, everything from metabolism to body weight to blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, and all those things. So this phenomenon known as Zoea, which is Zooeya, is this idea that there are these scientifically proven benefits around the health of people who are interacting with animals. Now, we also want to make sure that it is a bidirectional bond. So some of those same biochemical things are happening. If you're in a room with a cat or a dog, you know, as your blood pressure and heart rate come down, so do theirs, and they almost synchronize. So there are positives for both animal and person in those situations.
They're not just at our beck and call with the benefits, huh?
Right.
So, oftentimes when we hear discussions about the human animal bond, folks assume that that is probably more narrowly focused to just kind of the companion animal, domestic cat, dog, and
Mhm.
whatever other little typically critter that you might have in the house. But one of the things in looking at your book that I really kind of was intrigued by is thinking about working animals, right? Certainly you mentioned assistance animals, but also farm animals and other types of critters. So talk a little bit about the what that bond kind of looks like, and kind of just tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Sure. So not all human animal bonds are the same, as I said
Sure.
before. There's probably no two that are alike. No two bonds
Yeah.
between a given person and an animal is going to be like even a bond that they have with another animal.
Yeah.
So they're unique but universal. So I'd say with pets, primarily dogs and cats that are companions, that bond often I think centers on companionship, a source of comfort, and unconditional love. If we're thinking about a working dog, and book 2 goes into much more depth on this, but in book 1, a working dog or uh, a not a pet or an animal that's not is not simply a pet, like
Yeah.
a support animal for PTSD or for a therapy animal, or for that matter, horses that are
Yeah.
they're not used in equine therapy, but you have them as an animal, etc.
Yeah.
Those bring on a whole other dimension to that relationship and that bond, and it's really, I think, in those cases, is teaching us about trust. It's about purpose, respecting them, and actually a bit of humility because of us in that shared environment with them. Whether, again, it's one of those types of animals or it's a pet. So I think the examples that are demonstrated in Unleashing the Bond really showcase the versatility of the bond and how it can differ and still be positive and beneficial to people as well as the animals that they're interacting with.
Wow. Cool. So
I
yeah.
will,
Go ahead.
let me just say, I'll just give a little tidbit into book
Yeah.
2. So I do in that book explore further in depth with the relationship between animals. And here's just some of the populations or people: prisoners,
Mm,
farmers,
hmm.
those who have a service dog who have a disability,
Yeah.
policemen who have a police dog, military,
Yeah.
those who have dogs that are used in sporting events or hunting, and a broad array of others. And so let me just say, take an example with the livestock and farmers. There's 3 chapters in there, one with farmers, one with 4-H and FFA youth and then one with
Yeah.
livestock and veterinarians. I can tell you that in all those situations and all the interviews I did, it was clear that those bonds were way more than a financial bond.
Mm,
Many times the farmer put the animal's welfare before what it might do for their bank account.
wow.
And this was reinforced by veterinarians who witnessed those things, and then there's the 4-H and FFA kids who are showing animals, knowing full well, they're spending months training this animal, feeding it, cleaning it, etc., knowing full well that at the end of the show season, what's going to happen to that animal. More than
Wow.
likely, it's going to go to market. And those young kids proudly showed those animals, and then they wept and wept and wept as they
Mhm.
loaded on the trailer. But then they came back and did the same thing again. So they described that to me as they knew, but while that animal's with them, that it had their full attention. The bond was strong. and they look after and made sure the animal's welfare was the most important thing while it was alive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough. That's tough. So one of the things that I was kind of interested in exploring in my chat with you today is maybe a little bit about the nonverbal communication. As I mentioned, my dog uses he's verbal, but what's been interesting is how my communication with my dog, the nonverbal communication has changed as a result as well. He's a lot more likely to like tap my hand to get my attention and a lot more physical kind of nonverbal communication and how that kind of shows up in this bond that we have and because I noticed that he doesn't communicate that way with my daughter.
Mm.
Right. It is very much like a me and him kind of thing. And so for those of us with pets, one of the things that, certainly we all kind of have seen videos about the slow blink, all right? And the slow blink is like, oh, we're happy, we're content. This is me telling you, I love you or whatever. What did you find about the ways in which we kind of interact with our critters that might be maybe less visible and like doesn't get the star treatment in these discussions?
Well, I was going to demonstrate when
Yeah.
you asked about nonverbals, I was going to go, or my
Yes.
Tucker, one of my dogs, does this. Like
Yeah.
if I'm petting him and I stop, he's
Hmm.
so there's all kinds. I mean, it could be the way they're looking at you. It could be physically. It could be, I mean, for example, if I'm working from home and I'm in my home office and it happens to be like 10:30 in the morning, they know it's time for their morning snack. They come into the office and just wait there. And then if I don't get up, they start barking like clockwork. So first of all, I also think there's a chapter on each of these topics in book one. One is on animal intelligence.
Yeah.
One is on animal emotions. So
Mhm.
animals do experience emotions or feelings, and animals are smart. And so, if you think about intelligence and also, emotional aspects, and then you put that together with their nonverbal or their verbal,
Yeah.
talking about barking or howling or whatever, they do communicate to us in various ways. And we have to be cognizant enough and aware enough to actually pay attention. We need to slow down the world and observe, because I think in that case, they really are trying to tell us something
Yeah.
through words or actions.
Yeah. 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 Barkley, as always, he definitely does the tapping. And yes, they also tell time. They do know what time it is.
I'm telling you, when we set the clock back or we set the clock forward, they still know when it's 4 o'clock or whatever time they eat dinner, regardless of the clock. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, I do know how they know it probably. And because there is a chapter in there and this is about how pets find their way home when lost or whatever, but they
Oh.
do have this geomagnetic senses that they
Huh.
can that helps. So that could have something to do
Something to do with
uh,
it.
with,
Yeah.
with how they navigate the time of day and the time of their activities like eating.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So, you know, so you've touched on it and you've kind of delved into it just a little bit here, in terms of how our relationships with animals, which, they're clearly different from us, can be a training ground for, developing empathy towards others. Like, they can be a really great entry point. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's remarkable that we can form such deep connections with these animals that aren't the same species, and we do that when we don't have a shared language, we don't have a shared culture or even sensory experiences. Because dogs, for example, have light years greater olfactory or
Yeah.
nasal sensation. But to build that bond with an animal, again, we must slow down. Uh, that would probably help with our human interactions as well. And notice those nonverbal cues, whether it's a wagging tail, a horse shifting their weight, a cat choosing which space they want to be in, whether it's in the windowsill in the sun or on the back of the chair or wrapped around your neck or wherever it wants to be. And so I do think noticing those small things is a practice field or whatever for us to learn and impart empathy
Mm,
to non to other humans.
yeah.
And that's really about learning to listen without judgment, or listen without the need to talk, and setting respectful boundaries with other people in our relationships, and learning how to do that with the animal can help us do that with other people. And then I also think that the bond not only fills our lives with love and connection, but it also helps us help shape us into being more compassionate and more attentive to, in this case, the dog or the cat, but also transferring that over to being more attentive to the people around us and what their needs are. Because
Yeah.
sometimes they're nonverbal too. They're not telling us what they need. We're having to try to guess.
Yeah.
Even if they have the ability to speak, they're not speaking.
They're not speaking. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know for me, even in the type of work that I do, there are, to your point, we're just on the go. We're on the go, and it's very easy to kind of not see people, not speak to people, not do those things. And as I take my, daily take Barkley on his daily constitution, I live in an urban area. There are a number of unhoused folks in my neighborhood, and Barkley thinks they're the coolest people.
Mhm.
And now we always have to stop. We always have to stop and say hi, and they get pets, and there's a lot of interaction until finally, after the second or third time when this happened years ago, finally I'm like, okay, this is awkward. Hi, I am Lisa. What's your name? And you good? And now, we actually have relationships with people where, like really, really, when it's really, really cold outside, I'm like, we got to make sure that what shelter are you going to tonight, or where are you? And here's a cup of coffee. And, I bring some snacks and stuff with me on my walk to share. Same thing in the summer. I wouldn't have done that as easily without him. Right. Because, he was like, hey, these people are people. And for good or bad, my dog and his olfactory senses said they smell really cool. Let's go check them out.
Well, two things to that point. One is you've heard the saying, a dog is a conversation waiting to happen.
True.
And I talk about this in the book. And I can be walking in my neighborhood alone, and people will be on the other side of the street and they won't even look at you or wave. If I have one or more of my dogs with me, they're crossing traffic to get to me. Well, not to me, to the dog.
Right. To them.
So, and the other thing is going back to olfactory. One of the things that I heard from everybody I talked to that had a dog that was used for therapy, meaning it would go to other places,
Mm,
hospitals, schools, etc. They would say when I walk into the room or walk into wherever, my dog immediately knows who needs them and
mm,
would bypass
mm,
other people to get to them.
mm.
And I want to ask you this, if you noticed any of that with Barkley, because what I later learned as I was doing more research and what I imagine is happening is dogs, because of their olfactory sense, they can smell cortisol,
Yeah.
the volatile organic compounds from
Mm,
cortisol, through our sweat or on our
mm.
breath. And I wonder if those people that these dogs were seeking out were those who had the most stress.
Yes.
And so I don't know, what?
Yeah. I mean, I know he certainly reacts to me when I'm really, really stressed out, but also, again, Barkley is always running to the folks that he sees as seemingly the most vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
The most vulnerable folks that we might see. And for a lot of folks, I mean, yeah, a lot of folks ignore these folks. There's one of our kind of neighbors, street neighbors, who has some severe mental health issues. And even at her most challenging phases, where folks are like crossing the street to get away from her, Barkley is like, nope, gotta go see Miss Sharon. She looks like she's having a rough kind of day. And I'm like, yeah, she does look like she's having a rough kind of day. But I also see her in the middle of that struggle so hard to gain control so that she doesn't scare him or me. And so that
Mhm.
she can get a chance to pet him because that is a highlight for her, right? It's a
Well,
highlight for her.
there you go. There's a benefit. And that's the other point I want to make. You don't have to own a pet or an animal to benefit from them. You can get you can walk dogs at a shelter. You can, dog sit, cat sit. You can go visit your family or neighbors. You can get, all sorts of ways to benefit from the bond and not having to own one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Barclay's definitely given a lot of smiles in the neighborhood. So, can you give us an example from your book where the human-animal bond relationship has really kind of even challenged your own preconceived notions about, the bond and the people that kind of have these experiences with their pets and their critters?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think the most repetitive thing I heard as I interviewed people would be around challenging our assumptions or our views or perspectives about homeless individuals or other vulnerable populations like that, about, well, if you can't afford, you shouldn't have. And, I will tell you that in every case I saw, and I went out to a few homeless camps in preparation for my 2016 TED Talk. Those dogs or cats were placed before the needs of the person. Food, shelter, medication, whatever. And, okay, so that dog wasn't living, indoors and, having all the amenities, etc. That dog was with them 24/7. How many of us are with our dogs 24/7?
Yeah,
So those animals, in general, there's always exceptions.
sure.
I'd say are very fortunate to have such loving, devoted, committed, non-selfish people who are caring for them. And that was highlighted again by many stories and organizations. So examples like the Street Dog Coalition
Hmm.
and John Geller, Project Street Vet, which is Quan Stewart, or here locally in Columbus, Faithful Forgotten Best Friends, which was co-founded by a dear friend of mine who passed away a few years ago from a long battle with ovarian cancer. So I'd say that's the biggest, the most common thing. But I think we should always challenge our assumptions, or check our biases wherever they are, because we all have biases,
Yeah.
whether we think it or not. So, I just think it anytime we're passing judgment on someone around having an animal. Now, it's different
Yeah.
than if you observe somebody interacting with an animal in an inappropriate way,
Sure.
but just questioning whether someone should be allowed to have a dog or a cat should not be something that we should let ourselves fall into.
Yeah. 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 I mean, we're still, as you know, I mean, this is a bit of my life's work in trying to help people understand that the mythology around like black pet ownership, right? And kind of, oh, well, they're afraid of dogs, and oh, well, they're, and some of these things. And I'm like, well, I mean, there's some people that are afraid of dogs, but like there's a lot of people who aren't afraid of dogs as well. And yes, there are some cultural pieces, but for certain population subpopulations. But I always tell people, I'm like, if you want to know what, how extra, at least my personal demographic can be, like, let me show you some Instagram posts because I'd love to come back as a very well kept dog.
Well, and you bring up a great point. I mean, one, we should never generalize and make assumptions. I mean, there are cultural or
Yeah,
religious things. I mean, there's certain cultures or religions who have certain beliefs about certain animal species, whether it's spiritual or whether it's that they're dirty. But
sure.
yet, ones that might think they're dirty, that a certain species is, unclean or whatever, might cherish another species.
Yeah.
And so we just need to be careful
Yeah.
about making assumptions when we don't really know the full story.
The full story. Yeah. Lighten up, folks. Like, relax, relax, relax. So,
Exactly.
so tell me, what do you hope is the single most important message that you want readers to take away after finishing book one of this soon to be series?
Well, I think the thing I want them to take away is that the human animal bond is much more than a feel good companionship type thing, and that it's really transformative in transforming the lives of both people and animals. It heals, it connects, it helps make us more fully human, probably because of what we talked about earlier about learning and then exhibiting compassion and empathy and all those things toward other people. I'd say I also want them to remember that it's universal. That does not mean it's the same. And so it could be for a variety of reasons, religion, culture, or just the personality of the animal and the person and how it varies from relationship to relationship. But in any of those cases, I think it really is about teaching us about non-judgment, about unconditional love, and perspectives that we could apply to our own lives and our own human families. I also want to emphasize the part about the physical and emotional health
Yeah.
benefit. Actually, many times the pet is the most stable part of a family structure.
Mm.
Surprisingly, I learned that more kids grow up in households with pets than their biological father.
Wow.
And we know that children, you know, they find animals as confidants, telling them their secrets,
Yeah.
building their confidence and self-esteem. So there's those types of things. And then I think we have to finish with just being appreciative and having gratitude for how the animals actually embrace us.
Yeah.
Unless you've physically done something to them or somebody else has who has scarred them, they come to you without judgment, without anything, and are there to provide unconditional love, support, respect. And I don't know how many of us do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, just I'm human. We don't do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we certainly could learn from it. And I'd say the final thing is, I hope it leaves people moved, motivated, inspired, but also committed to protecting, preserving, and promoting that bond, and actually nurturing these bonds in a way. And they listen to and act on the calls to action to have positive change in our society around how animals and pets are viewed and the relationship, whether it's around pet-friendly housing, pet-friendly homeless shelters, pet-friendly domestic violence shelters,
Yeah.
and on and on and on. Hopefully they'll act on some of the calls to action that I pointed out in the book.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So, as we wrap up, where can folks get this wonderful book?
Well,
There you go.
this is a paperback. There's also a hardback. There's
Okay.
also an ebook and soon to be released an audiobook.
Woohoo.
And all of those can be accessed on Amazon. There are other outlets like Barnes and Noble and Walmart and others, but to make it simple and easy, Amazon.
Okay.
Uh, and I know people, if you have Amazon Prime, and I'm not advertising for them, but if you have that, I know people are getting the book in the next day or 2 days. And I've had people say, "Oh, my book arrived today or yesterday, and I've already finished it. I couldn't put it down." And as my
Yes.
dad said, I read a chapter a night before bed because I don't want the stories to end.
Aw.
So depends on the person how much you're ready to consume and digest, how fast you read it.
Awesome. And you said a second book, a follow-up is coming?
Yes, that title is Unlocking the Bond, and it's actually the power and paradox of human-animal interactions. And the paradox is around this thing that I mentioned. Yes, we love them and we treat them well, knowing what's going to happen. And
Mm.
a police dog or an military dog, we take care of them and we embrace them. We have this strong bond, and we put them in harm's way.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
But I do want to go back to the audiobook. The audiobook, actually, I had 57 people audition on an online platform, and then I had to narrow it down. The person I decided upon based upon his voice and his ability to represent my voice, the voice of my dogs who are in the book, as well as other people that are talking. He's also a veterinarian. He's an Oklahoma State graduate, and
Okay.
that was icing on the cake, because
Sure.
I think not only does he narrate and enunciate, but you can tell the emotion, that he
Yeah.
can feel the emotion. So, so yeah, that's much better than listening to myself, listening to someone else read the book.
And last questions. Tell us about your dogs.
So I have 3 black miniature schnauzers. 2 of them are 11. They turned 11 on August 1st. They are litter mates. One of them's name is Travis Lincoln, after Abraham Lincoln. The other one is Teddy Luther, named after Teddy Roosevelt and Martin Luther King Jr. And the youngster, who's 4 years old, and all of these were rescued and adopted. His name is Tucker Lewis, and Lewis is after John L. Lewis. So they are a handful. I don't know what I would do without them. One of them was really sick recently, and
Yeah.
fortunately, he got great care at the Ohio State University. He's on the mend, and they are very connected themselves.
Yeah.
The first week after we got the youngster, when he was 4 months old, it wasn't like that. But they have grown on each other over time.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Rustin, for stopping by and talking about Unleashing the Bond. Again, available at your online bookstore, Amazon, Barnes, and probably many of the rest. So, an audiobook for those of us on the neurospicy continuum, like coming soon. So thank you so much. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Yeah. So this has been another episode of AAVMC's On Air podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show on all of the available podcast apps, and we will see you next time.